Pope. I've been with Lindquist for 6 years now. I'm a licensed planning counselor, but I've really got 3 jobs that I do here. The way I like to explain it to people is when you come, you'll have a funeral director that takes care of you for the funeral, and they're gonna take you by the hand and walk you through that week. It's one of the roughest weeks that anybody can go through, and our funeral directors will get you through that. My job is on either side of that. After a funeral, I'll meet with folks and sit down with them and help them deal with Social Security and houses and trusts and taking care of all the things that you need to make sure that you manage once someone's passed away. That commonly dovetails into, hey, Grandpa had a pre-plan, or Grandpa didn't have a pre-plan, and that was awesome, or that wasn't awesome. And we want to do a pre-plan so that our kids don't have a similar experience as we did, or so that our kids have a similar experience we did, because usually when there's a pre-plan in place, things are a lot easier for the family that week. And so that kind of tends to lead into the pre-planning side, which is the other part of what I do. In that vein, technically a salesperson, because I'll sell cemetery property, I'll sell headstones, vases, niches, the cremation property, all the things come along with that. And then of course, my licenses permit me to sell prepaid funeral plans funded by insurance. And that's a really awesome program that Lindquist does, and winds up having me do a large variety of things, which I really like. And I'm grateful that there's that large variety of things that I get to do with folks. Prior to working here, I was a manager at a gun store in a range, which was a lot of fun and works nicely with the things that I like. But I wound up not being able to grow there and do the things that I wanted to do with the store. And so a neighbor down the road, when I was telling him about how I was coming to this field, he said, "Listen, you got to talk to my nephew." About 5 minutes after I left his house, he called me and said, "Listen, I talked to my nephew. He really wants to talk to you. You got to meet with them." And I was like, well, all right, I'll hear him out. All right, okay. Lo and behold, he had told his nephew that I really wanted to work at Lindquist. I was just dying and begging to meet with them. And when we met, we both suspected that his uncle, my neighbor, had been less than forthcoming about the truth. And we both were just game for it and cool. And that was Jason, and he's my immediate supervisor now. When he went through what Lindquist does, the program for my role and the program for our families, I was wildly impressed with how awesome and generous and good Lindquist was. And it's just blown my mind how kind all of the people that I interact with here. The funeral directors are angel humans. The secretaries of staff, the folks at the front, the people in the media department, everybody is just the nicest people that I've met. And it's been a bit of an adjustment coming from the gun world. And I'm just so impressed with how wonderful everyone is. I've been really impressed with how scrupulously honorable Lindquist is. I can't believe how nice everybody is, and it's a real pleasure and an honor to work here. I was born in Fairbanks, Alaska. My father was ambitious and worked with the IRS. We lived in Fairbanks, Alaska, then Oklahoma, and Idaho, and California, and Alaska again, and then finally here to Utah. I was 14 when we moved here. I learned how to make friends because I was an only child. That's one of the reasons why I wound up in a position like this, is because through necessity, I learned how to make friends and talk to people and start conversations. That's necessary to get people to be willing to talk about their own death. That's not an easy topic to talk about. And, just constantly I'm impressed with the courage of my clients to face it, to talk about it, to make a plan, because those plans wind up helping their kids and their sweethearts. I've been married for 17 years. We actually eloped to the Bahamas to get married. We've got 5 children now. Oldest is 16, youngest is 9, and they are very active, doing stuff usually not in the house. So when I started working at Lindquist, my supervisor required of all of us go on first calls with him. And what first calls are is when a family calls us for the first time to get a service started. A couple of funeral directors go out to the home, kind of set expectations, show them how things are going to go, bring their loved one into our care, and make a plan for how we're going to arrange everything after that. What it accomplished was to hammer into me the value of pre-planning. Because the first 2 families, I'll never forget this, the first 2 families that we went and visited was a veteran who'd passed away at home. His children were there, and there was a plan in place. Everything was paid for. They knew the plan, and it was like, they were grieving their father, but it was like a known quantity that they were facing. They knew what they were doing. And that felt pretty regular to me on my first time. I figured that was how things pretty much always went. But it impressed me how put together everything was. And I noticed that a large part of that was the pre-plan, that they knew everything already because it had already been settled. Very next first call that I went on was just the polar opposite. When we pulled up, the first person that we met was a police officer because they'd called the police because they didn't know who else to call. Second person I met was a young man, and it was cold, but he had no shirt on, and he had no idea who we were. He didn't know where his uncle was going. He didn't know where he was going to live after his uncle was gone. And he didn't know how anything was going to get paid for or what was going to happen. He had no idea of anything. And I was like, whoa, he never talked to you about this even one time? His sister didn't even come out to talk to us. She was in the back crying the whole time. And when we brought him into her care, I was just floored by how chaotic everything was for them and how there was no information. They're grieving their uncle, yes, but also all those other important questions. They didn't even know where we were taking their uncle. Where are you going to be? Where are we going to come? How does it cost us to meet with you? No, you don't. Like, it was wildly different and really drove home what's being accomplished with the pre-plan. And when you get the pamphlets for a pre-plan, they talk about all the financial benefits. They talk about all of the measurable things that people are commonly looking for. But what they can't concisely put in there is how much that week sucks for a surviving family, and how much having a plan in place takes the chaos and uncertainty out of the equation. Happened just a couple years ago. A couple came in to talk about pre-planning. Come to find out, she'd been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and she'd been given months. And they came in and they talked about her passing. They talked about the headstone. They talked about the casket. They talked about the services that they wanted and how they wanted things to go. And it moved me how courageous they were to face that, and how much of a stiff upper lip they had about it. I don't think I could, in that situation, be as brave as they were. And he was really, really, really cool, and she was a total sweetheart, and it just kind of like broke my heart that they were in that situation. But I sat down with them, ran through all the options, lined out what they wanted to do, accepted the payment, and got it paid for at that point. I saw that she'd passed away, got to sit down with him after the funeral, right? Because the funeral director did that. I did the pre, and I got to do the after also. So I sat down with him afterward and did a little bit of a debrief, like, how did our plan work out? And he was just over the moon with how happy he was about how it went. And he talked about what he wanted to do for his plan and set up and made his plan. And it was sacred or holy to me to be there with them, to help them go through a super tough experience, to see it on the other end, how it worked, and then see it getting paid forward for their kids. It was just the highest honor and an absolute privilege to work with them. How I invite folks to a first meeting with me as a pre-planning counselor is I'll show you the ropes on how the program works. There's no commitment, there's no obligation, it's free. So there's a lot of things about this that if you haven't gone through it, you wouldn't know, right? You don't know till you've gone through it for the first time. In those appointments, real basic, I'm talking through their vision for what their funeral might look like. I'm talking through the things that a funeral director needs to know. And then I've got a pie chart, and it catalogs all the areas where you might see an expense. You got the funeral service and the casket and the vault and the open and close fee and the headstone and all the things on there, right? Because it's easy to miss some of those things. And I like them to come out of that meeting with a dart on the wall estimate of what it would cost to do what they want to do. I want them to feel that they've put a big green check mark on a big hard job and that it's done, and I want them to go out to eat and think about something else. So the 3 words that I think best describe the best of me is optimistic, kind, and fun.